Hi everyone, welcome back to Running the Race. My name is Heather if you're new here. I hope you are all having a great week. I know that I am feeling better. The last couple weeks I've been a little bit off, a little bit not so great mentally. And I know that I challenged you in the last video to really stick with your devotions and to spend more time with God. And I know that that is something that I'm working on and getting better and just feeling better overall. Today I want to start us off with a verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1. It says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." I'm sure that you have heard that verse many times if you have been in church most of your life or gone to different camps. I know that I've heard it a lot, especially when I feel like things aren't really going the way that I had imagined or what I wanted for my life. It's so easy these days with social media to compare your life to others, to see that they're at a different place, a different step in their life. They've done all these things, and sometimes you just feel inadequate. I want you to know that you're not alone if you feel that way. I've talked to many people who compare themselves, and I do the same thing. It's really hard not to, especially with how easily it is to see everyone's highlight reels these days. But I want you to know that our timing is not God's timing. If we had everything when we wanted it and when we thought we should have it, our lives would be a mess. The Lord has a plan for you and a season for everything in your life. In Proverbs 3 verse 5, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." We have to be on the path of God in order for our lives to be what they're meant to be. We were put on this earth for a temporary time period, and we have to make the most out of it, and we have to live for God. That's the only reason we're here, is to build his heavenly kingdom. We're not here for earthly pleasures. Although he does want us to live a fulfilling life, he wants us to live the life he has for him. There is a story in the Bible that really shows that God's timing is the best. And this is in chapter 5 of Mark. And to kind of set the scene, Jesus had just healed a demon-possessed man, and he had tons of demons in him. The restraints couldn't hold him anymore. There were so many impure spirits in him, and God just cast out those demons. And then he got on a boat and he was coming back over. And this is going to start off in chapter 21. It says, "When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, 'My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live.' So Jesus went with him." I'm sure there's been a time in your life when things have not been the way you want it to be. Someone was sick, someone was dying. I know that I've personally had that same experience, and I've pleaded, "Lord, please heal this person." And he did in my case, and others he didn't. But in this verse, this synagogue leader, Jairus, pleaded to Jesus, "Please come heal my daughter. She is going to die." And Jesus said yes. I'm sure at that point, Jairus was elated, like, "Oh, praise. She's not going to die. My little girl is not going to be taken from me." So they're on their way. And of course, there's so many people that want to be in the presence of Jesus because he was healing and just pouring out his love on them. And in verse 24, it goes, "A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had had. Yet, instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized the power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciple answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." When Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" If you're reading this chapter, you might be a little bit confused. Jesus said, "Yes, I'm going to go heal your daughter." And then as they're traveling that way, someone touched the cloak of Jesus and was healed from her faith, from something she had been suffering with for a long time. And at this point, Jesus had healed many people. And so the disciples are like, you've healed all these people. Of course, people touched you. You're in a big crowd. But Jesus had to stop because the woman's faith was great. She thought, if I could just touch him, he would heal me. And the fact that Jesus stopped and looked around and said, "Who touched me?" He wanted her to know that it was her faith that healed her. Not just him, her faith in him was great. And that she was able to go and be healed. But the disciples with Jesus, I'm sure they were like, "Why are we wasting time? Jairus is probably standing there like, what are we doing? My daughter is dying. We need to get there quickly." And as they were finishing up this interaction with this lady of blood loss, the people from the house of Jairus came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" And I'm sure at that moment he was devastated. He got in the presence of Jesus. He spoke with him. Jesus agreed to come and heal his daughter. And yet, on traveling, something came up. Jesus healed this lady. Think about this lady. This is a huge moment in her life. One of the greatest moments. She was in the presence of Jesus and Jesus healed her. And yet Jairus is at one of the lowest moments in his life because his daughter is sick and then he's told she's dead. So we're on two opposites of the spectrum here. And then in verse 36, it says, overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went and said to them, "Why all of this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they all laughed at him. And he put them all out. He took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him, and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately she stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Now, if you're Jairus, you are now elated. You not only got in the presence of Jesus, had him agree to come and heal your daughter, became devastated by the fact that Jesus was wasting time, if you will, on this lady, and then here his daughter's dead. And yet Jesus says, "No, come on, let's go to the house. Everyone go out except this small group of people." And he said, "Little girl, get up. She's just sleeping." How amazing is that faith going to be? Because Jesus didn't just heal. He didn't want Jairus to just know that I can heal. I can raise from the dead. something that is impossible in human power, but in God's power, something that is possible. You can see here that I'm getting back around to saying God's timing is perfect. I'm sure Jairus thought, why are we wasting time? But God had to do something miraculous in this lady's life who was bleeding because of her faith. And sometimes in our lives, we can't see why God's doing something. We don't understand it. We can't see the big picture. But He has a plan for us that is greater than anything we can imagine. And I know it's easy to go in the comparison loop, to see people you haven't seen in a while and have that conversation of catching up and, I still don't have this in my life. I still don't have this. And feeling like you are a failure. But you're not. God's timing is perfect. And if we got everything we wanted when we wanted it, it would be a complete disaster. So I am thankful in God's timing, even though it can be hard. I still struggle with it all the time, but I know that we just trust in Him and He will make our path straight. I hope that if you have been in that loop of comparison, that you are encouraged to know that God has a purpose for your life, a plan for your life, in a specific timing. I hope that as you go throughout these next couple of weeks, you remember that you spend time with Him, you get closer to Him, and allow Him to work out the plan He has in your life in His timing. I will see you guys next time, but until then, keep running the race. Bye.